original conception of doing a monster movie, which I wanted to do, I wanted to do a creature feature that was made for the entire family. And I just don't believe that they make movies like this anymore. Either a giant creature is busting up an entire city, which makes no relatability to anything, or they just make movies about dinner parties and people stabbing each other. So where's the creature? Where's the monster movie for kids? That's what I want to do. But monster movies are always about something. So when you watch like King Kong or Godzilla or any of those things, two things happen. One, they're always metaphors about something. Godzilla's the atom bomb. King Kong might be something about the fear of the primitive and industrialization versus the primitive. Dracula, it's funny, like Dracula was made in a time when like actors like Valentino were popping out, you know, and these foreigners that would run around and sway your wives, right? And so look at Dracula. He's like from Romania or wherever it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
Comes in
Romania.
and what is the thing that you don't do with Dracula? You don't invite him into your house. Once he's into your house, you know what he does? He steals your wife. So Dracula is the fear of the foreigner, and specifically that Valentino coming in and taking your wife, right? But what is the ick about, right? And so what I thought about was that all these questions on these old monster movies is like what happens if the monster comes to your town, you know? And then they all sort of like come together and they team up and they get rid of the monster as a collective society and reject the monster. Well, today, what happens when the monster comes into town, and the metaphor could be 9/11, it could be climate change, it could be COVID, it could be a president, whatever it is, whatever you want to read out of it. What happens? People for 2 weeks freak out, and then what happens? They go on with their lives. You know, the towers come
They
down.
adapt to they adapt to the horror,
Yeah.
right?
And, you know, that might be an incredible sign of stupidity, or it might be a human survival instinct. We have had the monsters come into our lives, unlike then, and we realize that life goes on, and for good or for bad. And that's the metaphor for the ick. Some people say that the ick movie is so unrealistic because halfway through the movie, after the attacks happen, people go right back to normal. And that's so unrealistic. I'm like, is it unrealistic?
I think it's realistic. There's a huge cultural apathy in the
Yes.
world. There's no reaction. Let me ask you, the music, it really works really well. It's like punk, pop punk, or is that the music that you grew up with, I guess?
I grew
Not
up with
really.
all forms of music, but specifically the thesis of this movie is about millennials getting older. Because the thing about all these songs, and they're for some people, they may not realize these are old songs. They're all 20 years old.
Yeah.
You know what 20 years is? It's a generation. So this is the period of which I think millennials are starting to realize they're turning into old people. They're turning into middle age. And so this movie addresses that.
Yeah.
However, as much as the movie makes you feel old, you still like this music. And so when you walk out of it, you feel old, but good because there's a message behind the movie. It's about a guy that's trapped in time, listening to the same music, pining over the same girl, but he discovers he might be a dad. And when he discovers that, there's a whole new meaning to his life. And that I think is the lesson of growing old. You don't, yes, you have to embrace that you're aging, but you also can embrace that and give to the younger people. And when you find that love for younger people, you don't really go old. You know, you just go different.
And you cast Superman Returns, Brandon for the leading. How was that? And I think it's very cool that he liked the film. Oh, yeah.
Well, Brandon didn't want to do just a horror film. I had to convince him of my intent, which was I was making a family-friendly horror film, which is being made today. And he thought that was fun, and he agreed that we could find a tone that was funny and thrilling. And Brandon also, you know, he's so iconic because he's Superman, but like it's a great chance to sort of reverse engineer that iconography by breaking his leg and having a fallen superhero through the entire movie. He doesn't get to fly. In fact, his leg is pinned to the ground. His life is pinned to the ground. And I thought that sort of baggage was great for him. But then on top of it, he's a phenomenal actor. He's so charming, and he has so many levels. He can go from funny to crying to scared to angry, all together. He's such a versatile actor. It's one of the great mysteries why he's not A plus plus in Hollywood because he has all the goods.
He has all the qualities. Let me ask you the image and the way you edit, it's a broad, but I love it because you get into the story right away. how important was it for you to, I don't know if you were the DP or there was someone doing the camera work. What did you decide on those aesthetics?
The aesthetics are definitely a design that I've been working on for the last 35 years. So this
Yeah.
is a pure expression of how I speak. I have a very specific way of watching movies and speaking through movies. But at the same time, I am cautiously making this for a modern generation. The thing about doing a new type of Amblin movie from the 80s, like Gremlins and even Raiders of the Lost Ark or Back to the Future, or anything like that, it's shocking because I love these movies, but you will still have people today that are in their teenage years going, those movies are too slow. The funny thing is, when those movies came out in the 80s, a lot of people complained that they were too fast because they were MTV style edits for a new generation that had no attention span. They used to call the Gen Xers like, people with no attention span. And now the Gen Xers are saying that about Gen Z because Gen Z, like, forget about music videos. Music videos are long form in the Gen Z world. They want to see things 10 to 15 seconds. So on a certain level, I have to pull out all the stops to make sure that their attention is up on screen, and using all the tricks of the trade to tell that story at the speed that they now know.
And the texture of Ick, the texture of the monster, it was disgusting. You did a great job with that. Can you tell us a little about how did you decide the looks of the monster? Or
There's little psychological things that I added into the ick that was a bit of an experiment over time that I worked out. Like, for instance, it's got this gooey, tentacly quality, which everyone hates tentacles anyways. It's not a human thing
yeah,
to be around a tentacle. But then I put like these eyes on the tentacle, but they're really shiny, and so it's like black eyes. And then on top of it, if you watch it, there's like this sort of goo, and then there's steam, so you can smell the ick almost. And then I sometimes you'll see like I put blades of grass coming out of the ick, so it just feels like this weird amalgamation of different things that are just gross to look at, and it feels like it's invading and not quite human. And then the final thing is the movement of it. It sometimes it moves smooth, and other times it lurches forward like an insect. And
yeah,
I always felt like with an insect, when you watch an insect, it's already gross, but the minute it moves really fast, that's when you like, yikes, get that thing away from me. And that's when people scream whenever the insect finally starts moving. So the ick is
yeah.
like this fusion of a bunch of different things that make you feel uncomfortable about any particular organism. Because when I started, I'm looking at from inside out. I am the young person making things for other young people. Then I'm kind of like the older person that still has touch with the young people. Then you're like the old person that has no contact with anybody. But then you're the old person that has kids, and all of a sudden you're reliving youth culture because you're watching your kids go through the same things you did, but in a new way. And you get to see when they start watching only TikTok, when your 6-year-old is only doing YouTube videos, and when your 13-year-old is now like getting back into Nirvana for some inexplicable reason. Grunge is coming back. So you get to be part of the youth culture because you're involved in it, because your life is still, whether you like it or not, attached to kids.
Which is great. That keeps you and yeah, that keeps you informed from daily life and culture. I love the film. I felt that it was a great social metaphorical narrative in which it represents many things. Could you comment about the metaphorical aspects of the film?